The first time Brent Maddox set foot on the campus of the Interstellar Cultural Exchange Academy, he tripped over a levitating sidewalk panel and face planted in front of his entire alien orientation group. "Are you functioning?" asked a tall, lime-hued being with 4 knobby knees and a translator pinned to its chest. Brent groaned and sat up, rubbing his forehead. "Yeah. Just. Gravity's different here, I guess." "No," the being replied, blinking all 4 eyes. "That panel is broken. You experienced a fault in the system." "Great." Brent pushed himself up. "First day and I already kissed alien concrete." The being tilted its head. "Why would you perform affection with flooring?" Brent chuckled, brushing dust off his jeans. "Figure of speech." The tall being stepped closer, extending a narrow appendage. "I am called Silek. I have studied 12 Earth dialects. Your idioms remain elusive." "Brent Maddox," he said, shaking the alien's limb, which felt like a bundle of warm cables. "And don't worry. Most Earthlings don't even understand our idioms." They were both part of a new interspecies program aimed at cultural immersion. Humans were finally deemed stable enough to send students off-world, and Brent, a mechanical engineering student from Ohio, had scored a rare full scholarship. The academy was carved into the side of a cliff on the planet Varelia 9, a place with golden skies, floating moss, and native fauna that looked like a cross between a llama and a jellyfish. The buildings hovered slightly above the ground, accessible by gliding walkways. Everything hummed softly with energy, like the whole campus had been built inside a massive wind chime. In Brent's first week, he sat through classes on gravitational field theory, bioadaptive materials, and galactic ethics. He stood out, obviously. He was the only human in his cohort. Silek had taken a liking to him, though, and acted as his unofficial guide. On the 10th day, their class gathered in the orientation dome for a practical demonstration on multi-species rescue protocols, basically how to extract injured beings safely across various biologies. Brent was paired with Silek and 2 others, Yarnell, a spindly, feather-covered student with a penchant for measuring everything, and Vexa, a squat, gelatinous being who communicated through pulses of color. The exercise was simple: simulate a landslide, assist an injured party, administer basic aid. "Your team will descend into the fissure zone," the instructor announced. "Retrieve the distress beacon and return. Injuries simulated. No real harm expected." Brent adjusted his harness, which was designed for species with tails. He had to rig it backward to make it fit. "Don't die," Silek said cheerfully, handing him a translation badge. "Thanks for the pep talk." They descended into the simulation zone, which mimicked a rocky, unstable environment. The ground shifted slightly underfoot and the air smelled metallic. Vexa rolled ahead, scanning for the beacon. "I detect it nearby," Vexa pulsed. "Careful," Brent said, stepping over a ridge. "These rocks are..." The ground gave way beneath him. He twisted as he fell, instinctively shielding his head. He landed hard on his side, a jagged outcrop slicing a long, deep cut down his forearm. His breath hitched. The pain was sharp, hot, immediate. "Brent," Silek called from above. "Are you mobile?" He looked up, heart hammering. The cut bled freely, crimson streaking his sleeve. "Yeah, just a scratch." He regretted saying it the moment it left his mouth. Silek dropped into the crevice, his limbs moving with eerie precision. He scanned Brent's arm, his eyes widening. "You were losing internal fluids rapidly." "Yeah, that's blood. It's supposed to stay inside." "You are not panicking." "I'm trying not to." Yarnell peered down. "That is not a minor abrasion. That is a laceration extending." "I get it," Brent said, gritting his teeth. "Help me up." Silek supported him as Brent climbed out, blood dripping steadily. Vexa extended a cooling membrane to slow the bleeding. "You should lie down," Vexa pulsed. "Can't. We still have to retrieve that beacon." "You are compromised," Silek said. "We should signal extraction." "No," Brent steadied himself. "We finished the drill." Yarnell hesitated, feathers fluttering. "That is irrational." "Maybe," Brent muttered, tying a strip of fabric around his arm. "But it's what we do." They found the beacon nestled under a slab of faux rock. Brent's arm throbbed with every movement, but he kept going, jaw clenched, sweat collecting on his brow. His teammates watched him with quiet disbelief. When they returned to the dome, the instructor blinked slowly at Brent's bloodied arm. "You were injured?" "Yeah." "And you continued the exercise?" Brent nodded. "Why?" He looked at Silek, then back to the instructor. Because you said it was a rescue scenario. In a real one, you don't stop halfway. He was taken to the med bay immediately after. The cut had reached the muscle. It required 24 internal stitches and 2 days of observation. The Varelian nurse was fascinated by clotting. You lack regenerative cells, she said, scanning his arm. Yet you continue to function. Painkillers help. Brent winced as she applied a numbing gel. You should have halted activity, she said. I know. Probably wasn't smart. You endangered yourself. He sighed. That's kind of our thing. News of the incident spread. Silek told others how Brent had bled openly yet completed the objective. Some students were impressed. Others were horrified. You could have entered shock, Yarnell told him the next day. I didn't. But you could have. Yeah. This is not a sustainable approach to life. Brent laughed. Tell that to Earth. 2 weeks later, Silek invited Brent to speak in his sociocultural analysis class. The topic, responses to physical trauma across species. Brent stood in front of the group, his arms still wrapped, and told the story. I didn't do anything heroic, he said. I just didn't want to let the team down. An orange-scaled student asked, were you afraid? Of course. But fear doesn't mean you stop. It just means you're paying attention. Your species, said another, has unusually high pain tolerance? No. We just pretend we do. Silek raised a hand. Why say just a scratch when the injury is severe? Brent shrugged. Because we're taught to minimize, to push through. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's denial. Sometimes it's because we don't want to scare the people around us. There was a long silence. Do you believe that is wise? Silek asked. No, but it's what we've got. After class, Silek walked with him back to the dorms. I have reviewed your species' medical literature. You are not built for high trauma. Nope. And yet you continue to engage in extreme activities. Yup. Silek considered this. You are. Confusing. Brent smiled. Takes one to know one. The next field exercise was a 0G repair simulation. Brent participated with a wrapped arm and a cautious pace. No heroics this time. During the debrief, the instructor said you adjusted your approach. Yeah, Brent said. Learned my lesson. The instructor nodded. Good. Adaptation is valued here. By the end of the semester, Brent was no longer just the human. He was Brent, the guy who bled, joked, adapted, and kept moving. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the cliffside campus, Silek handed Brent a carved token etched with symbols. What's this? A commemoration. For surviving your own recklessness. Brent laughed. Thanks, I think. Silek looked at him. Your resilience is not logical. But it is. Admirable. Brent pocketed the token. I'll take that. He left Varelia 9 with a scar down his arm, a deeper understanding of his limits, and a dozen alien friends who still whispered about the strange human who got cut and said it's just a scratch. But he never said that again. 3 Varelian days after the incident, Brent sat on the edge of a floating bench in the arboretum, his wrapped arm resting on his lap as he watched a group of students attempt to coax a singing fungus into blooming. Every few minutes, the plant let out a tone like an off-key violin and refused to open. Try harmonic pressure, someone called. That's what I'm doing, replied another, waving a tuning fork. Brent leaned forward, squinting at the spectacle. Is it supposed to sound like that? Its sulking came Silek's voice from behind. They used a dissonant interval earlier. It remembers. Brent didn't turn around. Plants hold grudges here? Only the melodious ones. He sat down beside Brent, adjusting his translator pin. It still occasionally misfired and once referred to Brent as a semi-fluid bipedal disappointment by accident. Your limb appears restructured. Brent flexed his fingers. No stitches left. Just glue and a really itchy scab. May I observe it? He peeled back the edge of the wrap. The skin was an angry pink, ridged and healing unevenly. Silek tilted his head. Your tissue regrowth is asymmetrical. Yeah, that's normal. It'll scar. That is not optimal. Brent shrugged. It's functional. Silek reached into a side pouch and pulled out a metal disc roughly the size of a coin. I acquired a dermal harmonizer. It promotes uniform healing. Brent blinked. Wait, that's real? I thought those were for, like, lizard people. Amphibious denizens, yes. But adaptable. May I? Brent hesitated. As long as it doesn't vibrate my bones. Silek pressed the disc gently to Brent's forearm. It emitted a soft, warm hum. The scar tingled slightly. You'll need to hold it there for 17 minutes. 17. 14 if you hum in B-flat. Brent exhaled through his nose. Pass. They sat in silence for a while, the other students still arguing with the fungus. Brent watched a small creature with too many legs skitter across a lily pad-like leaf, then vanish under the moss. Silek's eyes tracked it too. You have not returned to the physical training module. I'm not cleared yet. You could observe. Brent leaned back on his good arm. I'd rather not sit on the sidelines and get pitted. Silek made a low click in his throat. They do not pity. They speculate. About what? About your biological threshold. About your decision-making. About your refusal to signal evacuation. Brent squinted toward the sky. Let me guess. Half of them think I'm reckless. The other half think I'm lying about how bad it was. Incorrect. Most believe both. He laughed once. Figures. Silek adjusted the disc. Some are requesting access to your medical logs. Brent's head snapped around. What? Why? To understand your pain limits. And verify your recovery. I'm not a specimen. There is debate about that. He groaned. Great. Silek folded his hands. You are the first human many have encountered. There is no baseline for your behavior. Brent looked down. The scar was already less swollen. I didn't think falling into a fake canyon would kick off an ethics debate. More of a behavioral taxonomy. Brent looked over. Do they at least think I'm brave? They think you are inconsistent. Thanks. That is not an insult. It is a trait most of them lack. Silek stood. You should attend the biomechanics seminar tonight. There will be a demonstration on limb replacement. Brent raised an eyebrow. You say that like it's a movie night. There will be refreshments. I'll think about it. You should come. I have questions about your joint elasticity. What does that have to do with limb replacement? Nothing. I am simply curious. Later that evening, Brent wandered into the biomech hall, still unsure if he was technically invited. The room smelled faintly of ozone and sterilized metal. A transparent podium held a robotic arm that resembled a praying mantis crossed with a wind turbine. A tall, spindly being with translucent skin stood at the front. Tonight, we will explore reactive adaptation in high-impact environments. Our prototype limb can adjust torque thresholds mid-function depending on cognitive feedback. Brent leaned against the back wall, trying not to draw attention. It didn't work. One of the students near the front turned and whispered loudly, "That's the one. The bleeder." Brent kept his eyes on the podium. The demonstration began. The robotic limb spun, twisted, and performed delicate maneuvers adjusting to simulated resistance. Silek appeared beside Brent, holding 2 cups of something green and bubbling. You came. You said there'd be drinks. This is fermented spiral fruit. It numbs the tongue. Brent took a sip. It tasted like static. Why would anyone drink this? It discourages excessive speaking during lectures. Brent coughed and handed it back. Mission accomplished. The instructor gestured to the limb. This design is intended for species with high trauma incidence. It incorporates feedback from over 12,000 recorded injuries. Brent raised his hand. Does that include humans? The instructor hesitated. Your species is not included in our dataset. Why not? Lack of consistent data. Your pain tolerance varies too widely. Your healing speed is unpredictable. Your compensatory behaviors are erratic. And your refusal to report injuries renders most metrics unusable. Brent looked at Silek. See? Not just me. Your kind is difficult to chart, the instructor added. But intriguing. After the seminar, a small group of students approached Brent. What's the threshold for severing a human limb? Asked one with glimmering scales. Brent blinked. You mean, how much force? Yes, or temperature, or chemical exposure. I don't know. I'm not a lab rat. Another leaned in. Do you experience regrowth? No. We use surgery. Or prosthetics. A third student, whose face was more snout than anything else, tilted their head. But you continued function after your dermal rupture. That suggests regenerative capacity. Brent spread his hands. Look, I'm not superhuman. I just didn't want to get pulled out of the exercise. That is illogical. He scratched his head. Yeah, we do that. The scaled one frowned. You prioritized the task over your own tissue integrity. It was a training drill. That makes it worse. Silex stepped between them. He is not an anomaly. He is an example. Brent sighed. Thanks, I think. The group dispersed with muttered speculation. Brent and Silex walked slowly back toward their sector, the corridor glowing faintly around them. I'm gonna have to give a full briefing at some point, aren't I? They will continue to interpret without context. Brent looked down at his hand. I don't even know what I'd say. Silex paused. You could start with honesty. That it hurt? That I was scared. That would be novel. Brent let out a slow breath. We're not great at admitting weakness. I have noticed. They reached the entrance to the dormitory. Silex turned. You should prepare. The Xenomedical Council has requested an informal interview. Brent blinked. When? Tomorrow. Mid-cycle. Am I in trouble? They wish to understand your parameters, not discipline them. Brent rubbed his eyes. Can't you just tell them I'm an idiot and save everyone the time? No. They require direct observation. Brent groaned into his hand. Fine. But I'm not letting anyone poke me. They may request a mobility demonstration. I'm not limping around for entertainment. They will provide a treadmill. Brent pushed the door open. Perfect. Alien Science Fair. I'm the exhibit. You are the data point. Even better. Silex watched him for a moment. Do not be defensive. Curiosity is not condemnation. Brent paused in the doorway. It feels like both. Silex didn't reply. Inside, Brent sat on his bunk, stared at the wall for a while, and made a mental note to avoid all sharp edges from now on. The scar on his arm itched like fury. He didn't scratch it. Instead, he lay back, stared at the ceiling, and wondered how many species had ever been interrogated over a single bad decision. He figured probably just the one. The Xenomedical Council had no chairs. Brent noticed this immediately, and not because he was tired, though he was profoundly. The room had a low, iridescent ceiling, a strange pulsing hum in the walls, and a temperature that hovered somewhere between sauna and inside a sealed car in July. But the lack of seating? That was just rude. He stood awkwardly near the center, surrounded by half a dozen beings who looked like they'd each been sculpted by a different artist, none of whom had agreed on a theme. One had 3 torsos stacked vertically. Another hovered without visible limbs, its skin a shifting ripple of blue veins and soft gold lights. Their eyes, or equivalents, never blinked. State your full designation, the central one said. Its voice sounded like wet glass being rubbed with a cloth. Brent Maddox. Earth human. Engineering student. No known allergies except apricots. There was a pause. A different counselor, this one with a translucent dome for a head, leaned forward slightly. You believe this information relevant to your injury? Brent scratched his neck. The apricot thing? No. I just get nervous and ramble. A third counselor made a noise that might have been disapproval or mild amusement. The first one gestured toward a long table that had apparently been grown from the floor. Approach. Place your arm upon the scanned surface. Brent stepped forward and laid his healing forearm onto the silvery panel. It felt cold and faintly sticky, like touching a peeled grape. A light passed over the scar, now mostly closed but still angry-looking and swollen in places. The counselor with the dome head clicked rapidly. Your tissue repair is inefficient. The dermal layers remain uneven. Subsurface bruising persists. Why have you not requested cellular restructuring? Because we don't have that, Brent said. We use stitches. Antiseptics. Maybe a tetanus shot if the cut's dirty. The third counselor, the one who hovered, pulsed a dull blue. You permit open wounds to close over several days? Yeah. With pain. Painkillers help, but yeah. Without sedation? We don't sedate for cuts. Unless it's surgery. A low warble spread among the council. One of them whispered something that made the table hum beneath Brent's arm. Your species permits conscious experience of physical distress at that magnitude? That wasn't even a major injury, Brent said. I've had worse. All 6 heads or sensory nodes turned toward him at once. Describe a worse one, the dome-headed one said. Brent hesitated. You want, like, physical details? Yes. He glanced down. All right. When I was 16, I crashed a bike going downhill. Landed on gravel. Tore up both palms, broke a rib, and dislocated my shoulder. Did you lose consciousness? No. Was your limb immobilized? My dad helped pop it back in. There was a sharp intake from the 3-torsoed one. Without surgical intervention? He watched a video. The hovering one flickered crimson. This is a familial ritual? No. He just panicked and didn't want to call an ambulance. Your species entrusts musculoskeletal realignment to untrained kin? Only when we're being stupid, Brent said. The room buzzed. The council conferred in low, crackling tones Brent couldn't understand. He shifted on his feet, wondering if he could ask for water or if that would be interpreted as weakness. Eventually, the one with the dome turned back to him. Why did you not terminate the simulation upon injury? Because it wasn't life-threatening. Your internal fluids were evacuating at a consistent rate. I had it under control. You were observed to lose approximately 100 milliliters per minute over a span of 4 minutes. That volume exceeds acceptable thresholds for most species. Brent shrugged. We've got a lot of blood. The council went silent again. So, Brent said, is this, like, an official review? Or am I getting benched? You are not under disciplinary scrutiny, said the tall one. We are attempting to understand the operational limits of your kind. Well, we break easy, Brent said. But we also bounce back. Mostly. Your instructor noted no hesitation or visible distress during the exercise. I was focused. Not fearful. Fear doesn't always stop you, Brent said. Sometimes it just sharpens things. The dome-headed figure shifted. And the phrase you used, just a scratch. What purpose did that serve? Brent scratched the back of his head. It's a joke. A way to downplay something bad. Helps other people stay calm. Even when untrue? Especially then. The 3-torsoed one leaned closer. You deceive to stabilize others? Yeah. Sometimes you don't want people panicking just because you're bleeding. Doesn't help anyone. The hovering counselor pulsed a soft green. Your cultural emphasis on perseverance surpasses logical thresholds. We're not great at logic under pressure. Yet you complete objectives. Sometimes because of that. There was no reply for a while. Then the tall counselor gestured toward the wall, which shimmered and displayed a slow-motion image of Brent falling into the crevasse. Blood flared red against the rocks and his body twisted unnaturally before he hit the ground. You did not brace adequately. There wasn't time. You absorbed the impact with your shoulder. Risk of dislocation, high. Spinal trauma possible. I got lucky. Luck is not a replicable factor. Brent looked away from the image. That's kind of our whole thing. The council conferred again. The lights in the room dimmed slightly, then returned to normal. When they spoke this time, it was in unison. We have concluded our inquiry. Your responses have provided sufficient insight. You are cleared for continued participation in Academy activities. Brent exhaled. Thanks. You are also advised to submit medical updates weekly. Your progress will be monitored. Understood. You may exit. Brent turned to leave, but paused at the threshold. Hey, just curious. Have you studied other high-risk species like ours? The hovering one pulsed blue again. None with such disregard for proportional response to injury. Brent nodded. Guess that's something. He stepped into the corridor. Silek was waiting, holding a small container of something that looked like mashed mint and rust. They gave you a nutrient reward? No. I brought this. For you. Brent opened it and stared. Is it supposed to bubble? It is enzymatically active. Supports dermal repair. Also improves sleep quality. Brent took a cautious sniff. Smells like battery acid. Do not inhale it. Consume. He tipped the container back and swallowed. It fizzed all the way down like carbonated soup. He coughed once, eyes watering. They cleared you. Yeah. I'm not being dissected. Silek made a soft clicking sound. Many suspected you would be. Thanks for the vote of confidence. They walked together past the Arboretum dome where the singing fungus was now fully open and humming a low, contented chord. A few students waved at Brent. None asked about his arm. They're going to keep watching me, aren't they? Brent said. Always. You are now a case study. Fantastic. You could request anonymization. Brent laughed. What would they call me? Subject falls badly and bleeds. They already coined a term. It translates to persisting despite obvious detriment. He stopped, eyes wide. Are you serious? Yes. That's the most human thing I've ever heard. Silek nodded. We have noticed. Back at the dorms, Brent sat on his bunk, pulled off the bandage for the last time, and examined the scar. It was faint now, a pale, ridged line just below the elbow. It didn't hurt. He touched it lightly, then reached for his datapad. A message from the Academy Medical Unit blinked unread. Subject PDOD. It began. Weekly status requested. He grinned and typed back. Still persisting. No detriment today. Then he shut it off, leaned back, and let the silence settle. For the first time in weeks, no one was trying to measure anything.